Welcome to the EnsoReal Paradigm Shifters podcast. This show is for and about the entrepreneurs who work to improve and expand our human well-being by bringing cutting-edge technologies and ideas to life. We are Marie and Magnus Dahlgren, your hosts. In this episode, we talk to Dr. Gaétan Chevalier. Dr. Chevalier received his Ph.D. from the University of Montréal in atomic physics and laser spectroscopy in 1988. After 4 years of research at UCLA in the field of nuclear fusion, he became professor and director of research at the California Institute for Human Science, also known as CIHS, in 1993, where for 10 years he conducted research projects on human physiology and electrophysiology, as well as being director of the Biophysics department and research director. Dr. Chevalier is currently lead faculty at CIHS, visiting scholar in the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health at University of California, San Diego, and research director at Psy-Tek Labs since June 2010 and director of the Earthing Institute since 2007. And now, here's our conversation with Dr. Gaétan Chevalier.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning or good afternoon here.
Oh yeah, afternoon.
I was going to ask you about earthing, of course. And my question is, how did you start this journey? Why earthing? Why grounding? For me, I listened actually for another interview with you and John Craig. And for me, it seems like a...
Oh, you listened to that one?
Yes.
Okay. You know a bit already.
Yes. I just was curious. And for me, it sounds like it's a long journey and it's a decision. It's quite a decision. So how did you come to this decision? What was your journey? Could you share with us?
Well, it depends where we start, but if we start with grounding, earthing. Mm-hmm. So I was director of research at the California Institute for Human Science, located in San Diego County, North County. Yeah. And it just happened that Clint Ober came and did a presentation on earthing grounding. And so it was 2003. Mm-hmm. And I've never heard of it at the time. Yes. And to hear him say all the benefits that, he saw with earthing grounding, I was wondering, wow, well, if that is so good, it should have been discovered 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I found out later that it was.
Huh.
But at the time, I thought that hadn't happened, so I was just skeptical. Yeah. And I just dismissed it and said, well, maybe. But one of his associates came to me and said, we would like to sponsor a research project on grounding. Mm-hmm. Would you be open to that? And since they were, willing to pay for it, and so we said, sure, we're open, and we're a very open school, so I will design a project and we will execute it. So we measured a number of physiological parameters, including brain waves, heart rate, respiration rate, skin conductance, yes. All this stuff. And it was all non-invasive, and we measured a number of people, well, let's say that we call them subjects. And so some of them were controlled, so we had a double-blind procedure. Some of them were... there was a switch, basically, that was controlled by outside. And so the people, and the switch was flipped, before anybody comes in, and it was hidden so nobody could see it. Mm. So the researchers, I was not directly doing the research. One of my students was doing the research, and he was blinded to which patients were grounded, were really grounded, and which one were sham grounded, mm-hmm. Because everything looks absolutely identical. Mm. And then when we did the analysis after that, we found major differences between the two groups. For example, brain waves calm down for the left hemisphere only. Yeah, which is the one that is thinking all the time. That's interesting. Muscle tension was measured on the trapezius muscle on the shoulders. And it went down on people who had high tension. And we had a few people with hypotension, and it came up. And it was also a very slow frequency contraction, expansion of those muscles. You know, that was never being reported before, to my knowledge. Now I'm finding that this is a phenomenon that is known, and it's an autonomic system regulation of the tension of the tissues. So we found very good results. I was still skeptical though, because I said, well, what if the machine had a ground, and you know, when you ground the people, you ground the machine and stuff. And I said, okay, well, we did another project. So they were, Ken said, okay, let's do another one. So we did another one with more advanced equipment, state-of-the-art equipment. The data acquisition system was actually battery powered, and the data was transferred to the computer through fiber optics. So there was no question that it could have been a ground loop between the patients and the grounding and all that stuff. So, and we had as good results. And also a few of my friends actually came to the lab and got tested, and they got big improvement. Both of them had pain in their hands, which were very difficult, you know, for them to, especially one of them, he said that from 0 to 10, with 10, you know, being the maximum I could injure, he was at 8 most of the time. And it was the case when he came to the lab. So we put a patch on his hands and start talking. About 45 minutes later, we asked, how much is your pain right now? He said, oh, that's interesting. On one hand, it's 2, the other is 3. And he said, medication normally don't, even medication don't do that normally. So with all this evidence and now no grounding, I surrender. I said, yes, okay, I believe it. It's true. So I've seen many things, and you know, it's not a matter of being anything to be convinced anymore, because we've seen at the Earthing Institute, I'm director of the Earthing Institute, and so I had the opportunity to have thousands of people sending their testimonial, not solicited. They just said, well, this changed my life. And I remember Kind telling me, that's why I'm doing this, you know, because it's a lot of work for him. He's been, if you read in the book, Earthing book, you'll see that he had a lot of difficulties. Scientists believing him, they didn't. So basically, I was pretty much the first scientist. There was also an MD, Dr. Galley, who said, okay, let's do, he was also convinced it doesn't work. He said, let's do a little pilot project on, so he used cortisol. And so again, there was interesting results. So since then, we have done probably, among a dozen of researchers, we've done probably about 25 projects, 24 publications. They're all on the Earthing Institute website. And some of them are, of course, related to the Earthing Institute, and EarthFX, who is the company that pays for those studies. But some of them are not. We have 2 doctors from Poland, Dr. Sokal. They did totally independently in 1990, in parallel with Clint Ober's discovery. They rediscovered Earthing too. And they found the same conclusion. They were looking at it more from a physiology standpoint, I would say even biophysiology standpoint, because they were doctors, metabolism, but they also did some biophysics experiment to see what happened when you ground a person and they are exposed to electric fields. And again, they saw that they don't penetrate, so that the person is protected against I would say most of them, because if the frequency is very, very high, like Wi-Fi and things like that, you're probably wise to be away as much as possible. But low frequencies, they don't seem like the 60 hertz we have here in the US, they don't seem to penetrate or be a problem with people grounding.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I have a question. I think there are people who obviously know already enough about earthing to practice it, but a lot of people don't even know what is this and what's the influence, what's the mechanism of earthing on the body. So could you please explain a little bit more what's the mechanism, how the earthing influences what's inside and beyond this word? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, grounding, earthing is one of the simplest things that a person can do. You just put your bare feet on the ground, preferably moist soil, preferably with plants. And I will explain now what the mechanism is. As far as we understand it, there's a limit to our understanding, but we do know, and this has been established for at least 100 years, that the planet is like a battery. So you have, a battery has two poles, the negative pole and the positive pole.
Right.
So it just happened that the negative pole of the Earth's battery is the surface of the Earth. And the positive pole is about 60 miles up, 100 kilometers up, in a region of the atmosphere called the ionosphere. And it's called the ionosphere because there you find ions. And where you find ions, and ions are charged particles. Basically, instead of being a neutral molecule, they are charged particles. And the reason we have ions up there is because of the sun. The sun rays are so intense, especially the UV rays over there, that these split molecules, or they remove some electrons from the molecules of the air, and that creates ions. And by a complex mechanism that includes thunderstorm, the separation of charge is amplified, and the thunderstorm tends, by the processes that happens inside them, to push the electrons down from the cloud and push the positive charge up. So what happened is that you have this thundercloud with huge amount of electrons. And at some point, the electric potential between the surface of the Earth and the cloud is so intense that there's a breakdown of the air and the electrons are sent through the Earth. Yes. This is like a gigantic static electric discharge, basically. That's what the lighting is. Gigantic. But that's what recharges the Earth battery all the time. So, and maintain the separation of charge. It's a very complex process. Nobody understands it completely. There's still papers published on how the charge separation inside the clouds happens. But we do know that's what's happening. Now, this has been happening for probably billions of years since there's clouds on the planet. So, and since the sun is shining, so that would be, a very long time. And life evolved in this context with having negative ions on the surface and positive ions on the ionosphere. And so the evolution of the human, and not only but for all life, took advantage actually of the fact that the surface of the Earth is beaming with electrons, the source of the negative charge. And so what they evolved, organisms evolved an immune system that takes advantage of the availability of electrons. If you look at the immune cell, many like neutrophils, and many of them, what they do is that when there is an invader coming in, a microbe or something, bacteria, they surround it and they send it oxidative stress, or what we call, it's like, acid. And acid is positively charged. And that's why in acid, when you pour an acid on the table, it will dissolve the table. But what the acid does is actually stealing electrons from the surface of the table. And so that's what creates a hole. So that's how the mechanism that our immune system evolved to kill bacteria and other, debris and things like that. They just simply put acid on them. So as long as we're grounded, there's no problem because the body, as Jim Oshman has explained in one of his papers, that's another researcher working with Jim Oshman. It's pretty well known. He wrote a book, Energy Medicine, on energy medicine. Anyway, so he determined that the most logical hypothesis is that these electrons that are stored in our body, just like electrons are stored in a battery, and they are stored in the interstitial tissues, and they are taken out whenever is needed. If there is, for example, an injury at some place, and then you have bacteria coming there, then you would have the immune system stepping up and bringing, white blood cells there and using acids to kill bacteria. But what's happened after that is that this acid needs to be neutralized.
Yeah.
There's some excess acid. That's where the electrons come in. That's what their job is, to neutralize the excess acidity. Now, if this doesn't happen, then you have a region of permanent inflammation. Then inflammation starts there. Something is not going right. So the cells, even the healthy cells, they start to be attacked by the acid. They send more messages to the brain and to the person, to the body, that we're still attacked. So we need some, but they don't have enough electrons. One of the places, though, that the body will take electrons, if something is really dangerous, it's going to be into the bones. So osteoporosis is not a normal state. It's part of the fact that people are not grounded during years and years, and they develop slowly inside their body.
Building up in the body.
Building up positive charge, oxidative stress. And so to keep up, the body tries to do something to keep the balance. The best way is to be grounded. And another thing that happens is that after a while, even that doesn't work, then what the body does is isolate this area. Yeah, so basically when the body sees it cannot take care of it and doesn't have the charge to take care of it, it walls it off. And it becomes a pouch, and it's become an inflammatory pouch.
Oh.
And it's not a normal state. It's something that the body has to do in order to preserve its equilibrium, its homeostasis. But with grounding and degrounding, this doesn't happen. And some of the inflammatory response that the body creates is part of the problem, actually, because the inflammation starts because the body tries to resolve the problem by sending more white blood cells, which create more damage. And then there's fluid coming in to try to dilute the whole thing, and it becomes a big mess, And that's what is the inflammatory response. It does not happen when a person is grounded. It does not happen to animals outside. And we've seen that over and over. So here's the biggie for what I'm finding. Earthing basically quenches inflammation, which is a big issue. And it's now the medical researcher finding more and more that inflammation is at the base of most of the degenerative disease, old age diseases, and autoimmune diseases. And earthing can help with all of those. It's pretty awesome.
That's very interesting. And it sounds like that's the natural mechanism earthing, how our bodies can regulate and balance themselves.
Yes.
And still there are a lot of people who are saying that they had even almost heart attacks and heart arrhythmias, etc., etc. There are people who are saying, yes, it's okay to do this in the farming area, which is not that polluted, but if you do this inside, for instance, New York City, it could be harmful. All these things sound for me like myths, and it's a human nature to be scared of change. But still, if there are such things, could you tell?
Yes.
Something?
So actually, there's a few circumstances where you have to be careful in grounding. And it's not because you're in New York City or there's remote farms that have current flowing to the ground, and some people claim that it's everywhere. That's not true.
Yeah.
It's some remote farms. Everybody in their homes has two slits plus the third hole, which is the prong, which is the grounding hole, and two slits. One is the live wire, and the other one is the neutral return. I haven't seen anybody in any city that doesn't have these two. And so that means you have a return wire. It's not like in some farms where they have very old ground power system. It's called a single wire system. There's only one wire coming in, and then the return current is the ground. Very, 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 very rare. And some people claim it's everywhere because there's a few cases that when people use the third hole of their building, the building is miswired. And what happened is that then there's a voltage on the ground. It's just because the building has not been properly wired electrically.
Okay.
And so it's very important that a person, before using the outlet, the ground outlet of the wall, to make sure that there's no voltage in it and that there is a good ground. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we would like everybody, to all the time to be going outside barefoot, and that would be ideal. Yes. But people in Canada, for example, at least 7 months of the year, it's so cold, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like people in New York, you live on the 30th floor of a building, you can't plant a rod outside, which many people do. And I have done also, I sleep grounded with a rod planted outside the building. I like that. Some people are electro hypersensitive.
Yes.
So even walking in a home, they feel the vibrations of everything. So these people, they can be grounded, but they have to be grounded in an environment without the electromagnetic fields. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of things that people don't understand. There's a few cases, like there's a guy who wrote to us, said, well, I plugged my mat into the power outlet, and I got palpitation of the heart. Well, before using it, you have to check that it's good, that you have a good ground. And then he used a rod planted outside, and he said, I have no problem. So you have to, these are the few things, because of the modern technology, that people have to be aware of. Nothing very scary, but something to be aware. If the ground in your building is not good, you can't use it. You have to use a rod outside. And if you are on a large building, most of the large building with many stories building, they usually are pretty new, except of the Empire State Building, but most of the building are pretty new, and they have good grounds. But in any case, in any doubt, you have to have an electrician check it.
Yeah.
And it's not because you have current in the ground coming in. It's not because you're zapped because the EMFs are present. No. It's just because there might be some miswiring in the house. Mm-hmm. Now, there's another condition that happens also, is that some people are very sick. And sometimes they don't even know.
that they
I
see.
mean, you don't have too much symptom, but they are quite sick.
Yeah.
And when they plug themselves into, ground themselves, they start to have pain, itching, sensation, different things that happen. That is a healing crisis. They just need to go slow. I had this lady, 86 years old lady, who started to have arthritis all over. She started grounding and she said, I feel like humming. I just said to her, just start slowly. It's because, it's been many, many years you have grounded, and that the body is not in a good shape. We just have to use common sense, that the preferred method is barefoot outside. Now, if you can't, then the next preferred method would be have a grounding rod outside. Okay. If that doesn't work because you're on a 12th story of a building, make sure you have a good ground and use the grounding system of the building. But make sure before people don't check. There's a checker that the company sent. That checker tells that the ground is good. But you might still have some voltage. Most people, and it's normal. If you have 1 volt of 2 on the ground, it's normal. And it's the way that the wiring is done. But most people, like me, for example, I'm talking to you right now. I have my feet on a grounding mat that is plugged in the 3rd prong of my building. And I've been grounding myself this way for, let's see, 2004. 14 years.
14 years.
And I must say that I have few cases where I could see that, I have no medication. I'm in my 60s. No medication, no nothing. I feel like 25. I have maybe a little less energy. But for a person my age, I think I'm feeling pretty good. And I think hurting, and also good, you have to be sensible. You have to have good food and good nutrition. You have to have good water, clean air, and then grounding and sleep. And if you do that, the body's pretty resilient. If people look at their lifestyle, you can see that they're not paying attention to the body. Body is like a biological machine. It's just like your car. It needs maintenance.
Right.
For example, if you eat all the time, it's good to do a fast because you're going to be, your intestine and all your digestive system after a while gets clogged. It's just, if you look at your body like a biological machine, it's not like any machine. The machine has some intelligence in it, It's like the body has we know that has a lot of intelligence, and we need to listen to it.
Yes.
And but if we do that, we can be pretty healthy for a very long time.
That's interesting.
So I'm saying that earthing or grounding is one component that has been neglected, and it's a major player into keeping healthy, just like taking vitamins, having good rest, the rest of it, So.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. And would you share with us your plans for the next 5-10 years?
My plans for the next 10 years is to get research done, more research done by independent researchers. I'm presently in contact with doctors in different universities, researchers, and we're planning. I'm just helping them. I don't want them to feel like, I'm a part of the team or something. Like I just want to facilitate them doing their research by providing information, my knowledge, basically free of charge, providing my knowledge so that they can design a good research project. Because we found some people, they try to do their research project and they don't have very good results. And I can tell you immediately why.
Why?
Well, the grounding system they use, for example, is not correct. There's always some problem. Like, for example, there's some sheets that if you ground, they're not, people used to use grounding sheets, you know, on the surface of their bed. Now they're being replaced because their grounding is okay, but it doesn't last very long. It lasts about 2 years. So the company has made some others. So if people use this still, they're not very well grounded. These people use that for research, or doctors use that just to test if their grounding would help their patients. They might not have as great results. So I just want to make sure that they use the best product for the project that they want to do. So then, so that they can see that there is, you know, best results. I must say that I'm very pleased to see that it's happening. You know, we have more and more researchers in mainstream university interested in taking this seriously and looking at the benefits for their patients. Now, another anecdotal thing, if I may share, because I think it might be of interest to women, it helps rebalance hormones.
Oh.
Yes, and we don't have a research project directly on that, although I am in contact with a researcher. I'm trying to coax him to do a project on that because he's an expert in hormonal change in teenagers and in menopausal women. But I just want to say that my wife has been grounded for all these years and never had a single hot flash or anything, not any symptoms of, you know, premenstrual syndrome or anything like that, nothing. And I think that's normal. That's the way, because I believe that the female human body is much more sensitive to the environment than the male. And it's designed like that by nature to take care of children and be sensitive to the needs of their children, which I think makes sense. But the reverse of that is that if the environment is not correct, the woman will know much faster than the man. And the man is designed to be more, less sensitive. And it makes sense too, because I mean, in the past they had to fight, they had to, you know, get the food. So it's just a physiological situation, you know, I think, you know, an adaptation, physiological adaptation to our task as human beings. So, but I don't think it's normal to have hot flashes and, you know, all the PMS and all that stuff. I don't think it's normal. But we don't have a research project. We just have anecdotal evidence to support that.
Okay, thank you. It's amazing that such a tool exists and we have to use it. I have to use it. I will ground myself today.
Yes, very simple. Just be careful that the real thing that I would warn people is be careful when you use a third prong of a power outlet. Make sure you use a ground checker. And if you use it and you have any doubt about it that it doesn't do, just use a ground outside or find a way to go outside and do an hour walk every day barefoot. That's all you need, about an hour a day, unless you're sick. If you're sick, you might need more. We have this lady, about 45 years old, with multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
And yes, and she had her cases in the book. She came with the left arm was twitching. She couldn't use it. And her face was pale. And so we grounded her at both hands and feet. And we started chatting. Her husband was there too. After an hour, she said, I need to use the bathroom. So she went to the bathroom. And she came back all excited and said, my face is all pink again. But she did that with both arms. And I look at her and said, I guess the face is, for her, is more important than recovering the use of her.
It's amazing.
So it's amazing. So it's been an amazing journey to be part of this team and see how earthing, grounding has been helping people. It's just like there's a few people out there that, you know, have not had a good experience, and now they think because of that it's a bad experience for everybody and that it's dangerous. But, you know, there's always a small percentage of people like that. And if I was in contact with them, I could, you know, help them to make sure that what they're doing is not bad, you know, a problem.
Yes, I think it's important to understand. If you don't know how to do this exactly, please use and seek the help of professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would encourage that. If any doubt, just make sure that all your doubts are gone before you start. Now, even that you might have, if you're very sick, even if you use a grounding rod outside, you might have some, strange effects at the beginning, which is the body's trying to say, oh, wow, we have this energy coming in. Let's start cleaning up the house.
Mhm.
But, when you clean out the house, you have dust all over and
Yes.
things for a while looks a little worse. But at the end, you get a very nice clean house. So this is going to happen to the body too.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And would you share with us your mission?
My mission
Right.
is
Yes.
to help others with my technical knowledge, and I'm also a researcher in biofield research. I am a biophysicist.
Mhm.
So I like also to understand the biofield energy, of the body, and how healers are able to heal, and what is the mechanism by that. So I'm working on that with another group.
Would
So
you-
I like,
Mhm. Thank you. Would you share a little bit this topic with us too? How healers are healing?
Yes, so I'm also director of the Psy-Tek Laboratories here in San Diego. And we work with a group of pranic healers. And pranic healing is a form of healing, but that is not hands-on. You don't touch the person's hands off, but you still use your hands. And so we're working with that group and others, the Psy-Tek Lab is open to everybody. We are now a nonprofit organization that is working to help people also we have a number of devices, like, for example, thermal imaging, which is excellent for early detection of breast cancer, even though it's technically, I'll say that, an adjunct to mammograms, but it detects, breast cancer a lot earlier, actually. But you have, and it's non-invasive, not very expensive, and it can be very helpful, not only for that, but any inflammatory condition in your body. If you have an inflamed liver, the only thing that they cannot see is the brain. We have also brain mapping, which is able to determine the status of the function of the brain by using 24 EEG electroencephalography. So we have that. We have also a machine from Russia to measure the biofield called the GDV, gas discharge visualization. So I'm playing with those. We also have another machine called a multi-scan, which use bioimpedance, digital pulse analysis, which about the cardiovascular function. And it's amazing because this was developed by the French and the Russians. And with the bioimpedance, they're able to determine if the organs have enough ATP, enough energy, or they produce enough energy. They can determine if the meridian system, something about the function of the meridian system. Mm-hmm. Of course, the basic thing you can determine with bioimpedance is the water content of the body, intracellular and extracellular. So you can tell if the body is dehydrated. And we are, we're doing research also for people who have new invention and would like, for example, to see the efficacy of their healing technique. Or we had this group that developed a bracelet that has some energy to it. So we can check everything, we do that too. So the Psy-Tek Labs is psy-tek.com. You can go there and find more about Psy-Tek. We do there. So these are the two things, and my plan is to keep continuing doing research, helping people expand, the outreach of earthing, and also elucidate the nature of the biofield, which I work with a number of other researchers in this field, including the person who has coined the term biofield, Beverly Rubik. She coined the term that has been adopted by NIH. I think it's around the year 2000. And it's now used for doing, when you do research and you want to have a grant, so you call that biofield research.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
So I'm having, really good time and helping people. It's wonderful.
Yes, I can relate. Yes, it's a very wonderful and very satisfying feeling when you live your purpose and your mission.
Yes. Well, that's how I got there. That's a long story, maybe. Because I was born in Montreal, Canada, speaking French. My English was not good. How did I come here and do what I do? That's a long story. Maybe I'll share at some point, in a book or something. But anyway, for the moment, it's the universe has provided for me so that I can do what I really like. And I must say this to everybody, if you have a dream or you want to do something, just keep believing in it. Don't give up. The universe is conspiring to help you get it happen.
Yes.
Has anything good in it? Yes.
Yes, that's very nice. That's wonderful. Thank you. I have a few more questions, and one question is about challenges. So as we mentioned previously, that it's in human nature not to welcome changes. So what is the one, or maybe not one, maybe a few challenges which you have currently in your projects? Could you share?
Well, one of the challenges is mistrust and misunderstanding. We had a group that that is helping people with their house and stuff like that. And so we had some differences, but now it's coming together. We finally realized that we can work together. So one of the big challenge is going away. The other challenge is the skeptic, who are skeptic by nature. They don't test anything. I had some people telling me, earthing, grounding is a bunch of crap and it doesn't work. They're just trying to make money and stuff like that. And but they wouldn't test it. I said, okay, if I send it to you, would you be willing to try it for a month? No, I wouldn't be interested.
They're scared that they're wrong. Yeah.
So I had that happen many times. So many of the skeptics you find out there, they're just talking heads. They haven't experienced anything. And they don't want to. It's too bad for them because their health will suffer.
Yes, but as you said, there is a will and some sort of scenario, destiny to what you're doing. So
yes,
probably the best way just to keep going and to live the life.
If you have, some people criticizing you, what you're doing, is probably you're doing something that has an impact. So
right.
I'm feeling kind of, okay.
Right.
That is fine. I know what I'm doing works. I know that it's helping tons of people. Just by you go to the Earthing Institute website, and you go in the testimonials, you'll find thousands, so many people. And we don't even solicit them. A few of them we did, because we are people we knew. Many of them are not even solicited. They're just grateful for having their life back. So that's what we hear.
Yes, so, and they're grateful.
Yeah. I am grateful for knowing. If I told you, like, for example, I have a method, a way, something that is free and guarantee you'll never have debilitating pain in your life, how much would that worth? It would worth $1 million. That's what earthing is. With earthing, people are in pain when they are in their old age. This is inflammatory pain. It's arthritis. It's diabetes, all of these diseases that have inflammatory component. Now, you won't have it if you're grounded all the time.
And it's easy. And
you have a policy insurance against pain. The only pain you'll have is healing pain and some headaches, but all of these will tell you is to help you rebalance your body. These are natural pain that happen from time to time to rebalance your body, but you'll never have arthritis, debilitating pain like this in your life. How much does it work? I'll never give up earthing for sure.
I think it's priceless.
It is.
I think it's priceless. Okay, and I have one more question to you. Would you share with us, please, your strangest talent?
My strangest talent?
Right.
Well, I must say to me, all my talent seems normal. I don't know. My strangest talent. I have some talents like everybody, but strangest. Maybe I would say my ability or propensity to look for the unknown. I'm not a person who can be boxed easily, so I got my Ph.D. in engineering physics, but in physics and stuff like that. But after a while, I questioning everything. So this is probably my strangest and probably the one that made me be here doing what I'm doing, because I'm constantly questioning. I was 13 years old. This is nerdy. I was 13 years old and I was reading Descartes' Discourse of the Method, How to Doubt Everything. I was only 13 years old. So that started on my...
Now we know the roots.
Yeah, now that started me on my journey as a scientist to doubt everything and I start from scratch, saying, okay, what's true about everything? Does God exist? Or, what are we here on the planet and everything? So, believe it or not, I researched those questions too. I did research. I think I have some answers that make sense to me. Maybe one day I'll talk more about that. But, I'm just a curious person. I remember I was like 5 years old and I asked my dad, Dad, why are the leaves green? He said, oh, don't worry about that. That's just the way they are. But I had curiosity.
I have to know.
I have to know. I said, okay, I won't ask it. But I found out later. Now I know.
Curiosity.
So, curiosity, unabated. Sometimes I had to be quiet for a long time, but I couldn't quench it, so it came back, and I think that's what, as human beings, we should be ourselves. We should be researching, and what we need, the deep question, and not giving up because some other people have solutions apparently for us. But for me, some people say, oh, that's sacrilegious, but you have to determine for yourself if that makes sense for you.
Yes.
You have to research something before saying it's true, it's not true. There are ways to research everything that I've found. There are methodologies there are some degrees in comparative religions. There are, you can learn interesting things about almost anything that you want. If you are, that's another quality that is very important, perseverance.
Yes.
You need to keep at it. You're going to have obstacles, thrown in your way, but you need perseverance.
Yes, that's true. That's very important. I agree absolutely. Okay, thank you very much for such a priceless, I would say, interview, and your knowledge and your wisdom and your positivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy my time in this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you.